Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video, I'll be ranking all the hidden depths items that came from the DLC, starting off with the artifacts. So, from worst to first. This whole video is about ranking them worst to first and telling you which one is best and which ones you should use and stuff like that. So, starting with the artifacts, the worst artifact I think actually is this Eye of the Guardian, over here, the Eye of the Guardian. So this, I have to say, is a completely rip-off of the corrupted beacon that found down here. Now, if you put it there, as you can see, the Eye of the Guardian does this much damage. Okay, it does it charges and then it fires. And the problem is you can't really move it that easily, and it lasts for like a very short period. Whereas when I use the corrupted beacon, just give me 1 second for it to cool down. But so when I use the corrupted beacon, like if you compare the Eye of the Guardian, bam, like that, does very low damage, it's hard to move, to this, and does like look at that. This is like 2 power levels lower and it still does more damage. And has a shorter cooldown period, and it does way more damage. So this is a complete rip-off. I like describe it as a rip-off, quote unquote, yeah, of this corrupted beacon. So I don't recommend using this. I mean, if you don't have the corrupted beacon, then go ahead, just use it. But once you do get a corrupted beacon, just pretty much discard it. It ain't like as good as you might think it is. Okay, moving on to the harpoon quiver. So like I was saying, yeah, with the harpoon quiver, I think it's good, but not so good. First of all, see, look, it fires. So if you still want to use your bow and shoot arrows underwater, just use the harpoon. But the problem is, like, you don't really need it. Like, you don't need it at all. You can just get a harpoon, or nocturnal crossbow, or harpoon crossbow. Like, that's the same thing, and like it's a crossbow that shoots harpoons. So you don't really need this. It's just like if you don't have a harpoon crossbow, just use the harpoon quiver. But once you do get a harpoon crossbow, like you aren't gonna need it unless you want to like shoot more arrows. It doesn't like. I mean, like, these do less damage. It does like double the amount of damage, but like it's pretty much still the same thing. They both shoot arrows underwater. Like, there's not really much of a difference. Like you see, like, here you shoot arrows. I'm pretty much still shooting arrows underwater. Whereas when I get this, I shoot stronger arrows. Yeah, still. Okay, moving on to the next artifact. Okay, so moving on to the next 2 artifacts, the statue of, I don't know how you pronounce it, I think it's El-Iskrix. Okay, comment down below how you pronounce it, because I'm very confused. And this is the statue of Snacks. So these 2 are probably the 2 best artifacts that Hidden Depths brought along, with the statue of Elixris, whatever it's called, giving you 2 random potions, which is obviously good for like last moment situations, and the statue of Snacks giving you 1 magic consumable, which is always good for last minute situations as well, if you want to quickly regen before you get back into the fight. Now, to test these, and yeah, so these 2 are probably 2 of the best, and I recommend definitely using at least 1 of these if you ever do some like missions where you're in a tight situation. So that's pretty much it for the worst to first artifacts, and now we'll move into the weapons. Okay, so the weapon I want to test, the first weapon is the Coral Blade over here. It's not enchanted or anything. It's rapid slashes. The Coral Blade cuts through enemies with stinging accuracy. So it's good, but not so good. As you can see there of the zombies, it took a long time to kill. So like, there's very little damage, but still kind of like, yeah. Like it does very little damage, but it's pretty fast. But I still don't recommend using it because it's gonna take a long time to kill mobs, like boss mobs and such. See, look at that, it's doing so little damage to them. It's doing very little damage, so I don't recommend using it It's fast, but it's very low damage. So it's an okay weapon, but I just don't recommend using it because of the low damage. Moving on to the next weapon. It is the unique version of it, the Sudden Shredder. Now, if you read here, it says, this blade may look colorless and dead, but it soaks up energy in combat and expels it into a powerful burst. Now, this is way more OP than the Coral Blade. It absorbs damage and it deals them back, which is like a ton. So we'll test it out on some more zombies. So let's say 2 zombies hit us. 1, 2. Like, there you go. Like this zombie hits us. Yeah, like it's better for more hits. Look at that, the zombie just went to fire. It's pretty good. It's good for when you're doing it with like a friend. It's good when you're gonna knock them off guard. Yeah, it's that along with the Coral Blade, they do very low damage and it's high attack speed but it's low damage. But I still recommend using this instead of this. So instead of the Coral Blade. I mean, they're both meh weapons, like so, not as good. Not strong but fast. This one is pretty weak, I have to say. This one it's okay. Like it absorbs the weapon, its attack, and does them in a big hit, which I would say is pretty good. Okay, moving on to our next weapon, which is better than this, the anchor. Okay, this anchor is tough. Like look at this. I'll show you more this. Yeah, look at this. Boom. It's pretty much gonna like one shot all the mobs under the vehicle. One shot, like it's one shot. It's pretty much one shot him all, 2-shotting at least. It's slow, so I definitely recommend using this with a Death Cap Mushroom. I definitely recommend using it with Death Cap Mushroom because it's slow, pulls enemies in, and it does lots of damage. It's a very good weapon for tanky builds, and it has a big range of blasting. And so like I can hit mobs here, here. Like it is strong but slow. So I recommend using it with Death Cap Mushroom. Now moving on to our last melee weapon, the unique variant, the Encrusted Anchor. The Encrusted Anchor was long lost at sea long ago, and has soon become a harsh and corrosive during its ages of intelligence. So this inflicts poison. It's the same thing, just inflicts poison. It's better like this. It's definitely better, and I recommend using it out of all the melee weapons that the Hidden Depths added. Like the anchor, I recommend using this with the Death Cap Mushroom because it's slow. And as you can see, it has the unique enchantment that only this weapon and the whips has it from the Jungle Awakens DLC. It's called Poison. It's an enchantment only you can't get it anywhere else except for modding. It's unique to the Encrusted Anchor and to one of the whips from the Jungle Awakens DLC. So that's it for the melee weapons. So this is the best. So it's pretty much taking out all these weapons. So I definitely recommend using this out of all the items. It's slow, but it does tons of damage. Moving on to the armors. Okay, moving into the armors. The weakest armor I would say is this armor, the squid armor. I mean, all the armors that Hidden DLC brought are pretty good, but like not the weakest, but like those that like it ain't so good, but like it's still good. How do you say it? Like, is the squid armor. I mean, it doesn't really have lots of abilities. It only like releases an ink cloud when rolling, which isn't that good, but it's always nice to blind mobs. Yeah. It also has 15 plus movement speed aura. I mean, I guess that's good for speedrunning builds, but yeah. Okay, the next armor would be the turtle armor. I think this goes after the squid armor because this has the healing boost and the damage reduction, which is a fast but tanky build. It's very good for tanky builds. Like you could use this with the encrusted anchor over here, and then make a unique tanky build, like a very big, like you can charge into mobs and just like So after this, there's actually a nimble turtle armor, which I don't have, and I'll showcase later. And then after the nimble turtle armor, there's the glow squid armor. Now this is the best because this is like brief invulnerability with robes, which is pretty neat. So you don't have it, so you won't take any damage after. Well, this also is pretty good for like speedrunning builds. It's probably the best armor for speedrunning builds actually, and you can just speed the levels like a god. Okay, time to showcase the nimble turtle. Okay, here I have the nimble turtle armor here. I'd say it's the third best. I mean, the second best armor because it has that speed boost after hit. It's a rather tanky but fast build, and the speed boost after hit, aka the rush enchantment. Rush enchantment over here makes it like very fast. So it's a fast but tanky build, and it's good for tanky builds and also fast builds. If you want to go fast and go tanky, that is a good armor. Okay, onto the ranged weapons. Starting off, the weakest ranged weapon that I think there is the harpoon crossbow. I mean, it does a lot of damage, but not a lot. It's good for underwater levels, but there's only 3. As far as harpoon, it's good for underwater levels. Maybe not so good for like levels up, like not underwater. Okay. The next weakest bow, I have to say, it's actually the nautical crossbow. I mean, it does very low damage compared to the other bows. Like this is charged and like it doesn't do a lot of damage. Like if I was testing it out, if you check my Cacti Canyon level, and it did very low damage to the Vindicators and the other mobs. So it's good for piercing bolts. I mean, if you have a lot of arrows, you can usually use it. And like if you use it with enchantment like Fuse Shot, Bonus Shot, or Refreshment, one of those, it'll do a lot of damage. Like some enchantments that make it do more damage would be great. That also goes for the harpoon. Okay. The next weakest, not weakest. I mean, all these items in the hidden depths aren't weak. Just maybe the artifacts, but yeah, maybe the artifacts and some of the weapons. But the second best ranged weapon would be the bubble bow. It can trap mobs in bubble. Here, we go to the target dummy, only if it's charged. So be sure to charge it up. It traps them in a bubble, and the bubble should pop and do like a lot of it. So it's good if you can charge out multiple shots and like bubble multiple mobs, and then they all pop and do a ton of damage. This is always good for underwater, yet also above water. I mean, for underwater it's not that good because it's still a bow and won't do a lot of damage. It's good for above ground, so you can trap them bubble and then do a lot of damage. Okay, probably the best is this bubble burster. This bubble burster has a unique enchantment called Reliable Recoil Hit. So it recoil hits better and has a better chance of doing it. So recoil hits and bubble. So it can bubble like a ton of mobs. So bubble, it can bounce, and just like bubble as many mobs as it wants. It just reliable. It bounces off there, bounce, and it can cause like a massive chain reaction of tons of mobs. Bubble. Yeah, so in conclusion, that's probably the best bow. Okay. Just checking. Yeah. Okay. So before this video ends, I'm just showing you the hidden depth setup that you should use. You should have a bubble burster, a glow squid armor, an encrusted anchor, statue of elixirs, statue of snacks, and maybe a harpoon quiver or something else of your choice. And that's it for ranking all hidden depths items that they add in DLC. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and see you next time.